Listen carefully. Can you hear the rhythm in the markets? Not just in the syncopations triggered by inflation, but in the preludes leading to global elections, in the dissonance that moves the Nikkei, and the rising course conducted by AI. There's music in the markets, and if you want to learn to listen for it, we'll show you how.
Join me each week on Wall Street Week for stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
From our global headquarters in New York, I'm Danny Berger. Welcome to Bloomberg Brief. Let's set your agenda.
Bloomberg Brief delivers the market news, data, and analysis you need live every weekday only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything. Tune in to Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
We got to talk crypto.
From the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead.
What's the conversation around your company?
Bringing you insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy.
Planning very big things.
A new level of premium.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The floodgates of innovation are going to open up.
You can't fake passion. You either are or you aren't.
Bloomberg Business Week Daily, only on Bloomberg. Why do the biggest names in business choose Bloomberg Television?
That's a great question.
It's a very good question.
Interesting question.
Good question.
Great question.
I so appreciate that question.
You certainly ask interesting questions.
Bloomberg Television. Top experts, great questions.
It's time to buy the dip again. That is according to the trading desk over at Goldman Sachs, telling clients that losses in momentum stocks may present a dip buying opportunity so long as tech earnings next week, including NVIDIA, but really it's just NVIDIA, drive a prolonged AI sell-off. Joining us at the desk is Chris Verrone. He is partner and chief market strategist at Strategas. That is a Baird company. And Chris, you think about the sell-off that's been developing in the S&P 500. We're looking at 5 or 6 days of losses on your big benchmark. What's your opinion? Is this a time to step into those losses and try to catch the knife?
Well, I think the good news is it's been very rotational under the surface. I mean, most stocks have actually been up the last several days, even as some of the big AI darlings have been hit here. Now, I would say in terms of the index itself, maybe talk to me in 6 weeks. I think it's the last week of August. I think we're in, as we know, one of the weaker seasonal periods of the calendar. This is really not the time of the year to be chasing momentum. I think we'll get a better, I think we'll get a better chance to, quote, buy the dip, say late September, early October. I think worst case, you're looking at 6,150, maybe 6,200 on the S&P. But remember, as the big stocks have come in, look at all the durables. The economic cycle is actually starting to turn back up. Home building, autos. That seems like it's still a pretty constructive economic story being told.
So this seems to be these drops of the last few days. They haven't been big. I don't think they've been on huge volume. We've seen a little bit more at the open. But it coincides with a higher risk of no cut. Now, there's still an 80% chance of a cut in September, but do you see that as a big risk, and is that a problem for stocks if they don't?
Well, we sit here on the eve of Jackson Hole, and we always joke kind of who needs Jackson Hole when you have the two-year yield, and the two-year yield is telling you you're going to get 75 basis points of cuts here over some period of time. I mean, the two-year yield is called 375 at the moment. We know where Fed funds is. So I think it would be silly if the Fed didn't go in September. And I don't think this is about getting easy. This is about getting back to neutral. And my suspicion is that is what some of those rate-sensitive corners of the market are really starting to inflect on.
All right, Chris, we are just getting started. You're sticking with us through the opening bell. That is up next. Take a look at this setup as we count down to the ringing. You can see it doesn't look too good, but we'll bring you through all the opening action up next. This is Bloomberg.
Do you know what to tell people about what the tariffs are going to do on the United States economy and the investment environment, or is it not clear yet?
If you look at the impact of the tariffs, they were much more significant and broad than I think the market expected. Looks closer to 19% on balance versus 2 and change last year. So effectively, it's a 20% increase on 10% of household goods that are imported into this country.
And do you think it's going to lead to a recession?
Well, we think that it's going to impact both inflation and the economic growth scenario. So we were coming into yesterday expecting the real economy to grow at 2%. And inflation to be closer to 2.8%. If you just go through the math, it would suggest there's probably 1 to 2 points upward increase on inflation and a similar amount on economic growth. So it could put us in a position where we're teetering.
So the tariffs will likely depress the GDP growth rate and increase inflation. So what's the advantage of tariffs?
From our standpoint, we have a hard time seeing the benefits of tariffs. They do tend to be inflationary in the short term. As you're pointing out, the longer term impact on economies is probably the greater downside.
At a time when policy in Washington is driving Wall Street, we draw a distinction between the rhetoric and the action, bringing you market-moving guests and original reporting. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Francine Lacqua in Sintra, Portugal, and this is Bloomberg.
Moments away from the start of trading, this is Bloomberg Open Interest. I'm Matt Miller. We are looking at yet another down day on stocks. S&P has been off basically 5 days in a row. Right now, futures are down 1/3 of 1%. NASDAQ futures also. And when I came in at like 3, they were up. So we thought there'd be a recovery, and there hasn't been one. Goldman Sachs says buy the dip. People aren't doing it yet. Ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, Disney, ESPN, as Chris points out, Troy Aikman there, which is pretty exciting. And this whole story, I think, is pretty cool because as people are able to actually watch live sports on the ESPN Plus apps, they'll be able to totally cancel cable. They don't need Fubo. They don't need DAZN anymore. It's not cool for those guys, obviously, but for maybe us. Origin is a SPAC. Who knows what they'll do? Something probably great with that money. And
okay.
I don't know. SPACs just tend to dive, right?
Well,
do you ever look at a SPAC chart that's been awesome?
In 2021, it was a different story, and it feels like we're getting some of that frothiness back in the market. We'll see what happens with Origin. But let's talk about Boeing. Shares unchanged, which is interesting because it was higher pre-market as it moves closer to finalizing a deal with China to sell as many as 500 aircraft. That is according to people familiar with the matter. This would be contingent on simmering trade tensions between the U.S. and China. Specifically, those trade tensions may be cooling down a little bit. As we were talking about with Sid Phillip a little bit earlier, Matt, that is a big if, and that might be why you're seeing Boeing kind of lose some of the momentum it was building pre-market.
Waiting for that export tax announcement to come out. Walmart shares falling after profit missed expectations due to a rise in insurance claims, legal charges, and restructuring costs. Despite the rare miss, Walmart raised its sales guidance. It had been up almost 14% year to date. It's been up with total return 150% over the past 5 years, so it hasn't done poorly, and maybe this is some profit taking. We're back here with Chris Verrone, partner and chief market strategist at Strategas, a Baird company. And Chris, what do you think about the impact of tariffs? We keep waiting for it to show up in the numbers. It hasn't yet, but I guess now economists are saying end of third, beginning of fourth quarter.
I mean, first it was the end of the second quarter, then the end of the third quarter. Now they're talking about 2026. We always concede in our work that the market is far smarter than we'll ever be. And when I look at how the consumer discretionary stocks on balance have responded over the last 6, 8, 10 weeks, I think it's really encouraging that the market has looked through what potential problems may be out there. Discretionary equally weighted is at 5-year relative highs versus the S&P, so strong as it's been versus the index in 5 years. You've seen the index itself break out on a price basis. Internally, we have some of the best participation within discretionary that we've seen in years. years. So if I'm going to take the market's word, I think the consumer's in pretty decent condition here. Whether that's a response to future rate cuts, whether that's a response just to this resiliency that's been so clear over the last number of years, we'll see in time. But I think the consumer is still in a decent place here.
Well, on the topic of tariffs, let's talk a little bit more about trade, because one of the big headlines this morning is that the U.S. and the European Union, they're taking steps to formalize their trade pact. You're not seeing really any reaction in the market. It seems like, to your point, the market is just looking through some of these trade negotiations in particular. Is that just because we're not talking about China, or because we've just grown numb to the topic?
Well, I think what's curious, when you look at Europe in particular, even kind of during the heightened moments of stress over recent months, the European banks never went down. So if we're going to use the European banks as some barometer for how the market perceives the state of relations, I think the response there has been pretty telling. I would also note Moeller-Maersk, the largest shipping bellwether in the world, has broken out here. So if we're thinking about messages on global shipping and global growth, constructive message there. Turning to Asia, you've seen Chinese 10-year yields go up. You've seen the Chinese credit impulse turn up. So could we make a case that global growth is actually reaccelerating here? Look at the Japanese chemicals, the Japanese autos, the Chinese tech stocks.
Look at liquidity. Look at M2.
There's a story coming together here that I think the consensus is going to have to move to, that the slowdown happened. The slowdown's over. And the reacceleration of 2026 might be the untold story.
So, I mean, you're chief market strategist, not just focused on what's going on in the U.S. When you look around, do you see pockets, regions that are more interesting?
I mean, you have a raging bull market in Japan that gets absolutely no respect. I mean, Nikkei spent the last 2 years chopping around, has decisively made new highs here, but look at the leadership coming from that part of the world. You've seen the autos turn up. You've seen the Japanese kind of tech and software and comm services all take the baton of leadership, and these Japanese banks have just continued to work through it all. So, you know, there's all this attention on Europe. There's certainly been attention on China. The Japan bull market is the most untold one. And, you know, I think the hesitancy that investors have had is they see what JGBs have done, they see what the yen has done, and they can't fathom how the market could perceive that in anything but a bearish light. But the market's telling you a different story over there, and I want to respect it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. It is a very quiet bull market because we don't talk about it at all.
Ever.
Let's talk a little bit more about other parts of the market, though, and let's talk about other asset classes, because we were just talking about the example of last year when you had the Fed deliver that 50 basis point cut, and you saw 10-year yields shoot higher. Do you think that we're setting up for a repeat here, or what is going on at the long end?
You know, I think when you talk about the long end and you put it in context of what's happened this year, it's also been another story of waiting, and hey, nothing happens, right? First, it was the tax bill, then it was the tariffs. Any of these were supposed to break the long end out, and it never happened. You know where the long end is breaking out? In Germany, right? So the one area without a tax bill, without a big, that's where you've seen the big move on the long end. German 30-year yields through about 3.25, making cycle highs here, not in the U.S. So very important distinction there between what we're seeing in European yields and what we're seeing in U.S. yields.
So if you had a client come to you with $1 million burning a hole in her pocket and said, like, I want to put it all on red 22, is there something that you're excited about? Is something you're sitting around with your scotch at the end of the day and thinking, God, I love this investment thesis?
That sounds nice. Listen, I think when you look at the landscape of the world here, I want to lean into areas of the market that I perceive to be unappreciated but working. And that's always the best combination in this, where you have a very dismissive class of people about it, yet strength. And I think Japan fits that bill. I think consumer discretionary fits that bill here as well. I'll tell you what does not fit that bill. There's still so much enthusiasm about gold and precious metals. Gold hasn't made a dollar of progress since the April blow-off, I think April 15th, April 17th. And that's against the backdrop of Middle East conflict, Ukraine, Russia, tax bill, tariffs. Gold has been dead money for 4 months. I think it's finished here. People still love it. We don't see it.
That is also a great point. I'm looking at the chart of gold right now, and you're right. You see the steady climb higher, and then we've just been treading water for several months now.
You know what's been unique? The gold bull market really commenced with what I would say is maybe the weaponization of dollar back at the start of the Ukraine-Russia war in early 22. So I think gold's indifference here, and frankly, I suspect in time, gold's weakness is another tell that, hey, we're getting closer to peace there. I think the weakness in the European defense companies reflects that as well. Look at Rheinmetall, look at BAE Systems, look at Thales in France. There seems to be a story coming together that that the market's pretty optimistic about this getting done.
All right, Chris, great to get some time with you. That is Chris Verone of Strategas. That is a Baird company. Meanwhile, let's get a check on this market. We're about 7 minutes into the Thursday session. The S&P 500 continuing to sell off here, down for a fifth day, only down about 0.3% right now. But I want to highlight the breadth that we're seeing to the downside. You have fewer than 100 names in the green right now, more than 400 nursing losses. Up at the top, this certainly helps. You have NVIDIA higher by about 0.7%. We've actually seen it in the other column for most of this week, but NVIDIA rising a little bit. Same story when you take a look at Alphabet, looking at gains of about 1%. That is trying to lift this market, but take a look at some of the weights. Walmart reporting earnings, that rare profit miss. That's good for a 4% decline. That is your biggest loser on the index right now. But you also have Amazon, Meta, Costco, et cetera, also weighing down the index. And you add it all together, definitely more losers than gainers. And that's going to be true at the sector level as well. The only sector in the green right now is communication services. That's pretty much tech in disguise, only looking at a gain of about 0.1%, and then it just gets worse from there. Currently, your biggest losers are real estate, financials, and consumer staples. Matt Miller down by about 1.3%.
It is especially ugly from an industry group point of view. That does not look good. All right, and I know that the Mag 7 index is also hunched right now, so not making a lot of forward progress. Coming up, Walmart falls after the world's largest retailer reported its first profit miss since May of 2022. We'll break down the earnings call, which just happened with analysts. Next, this is Open Interest.
Sempat terdengar rumor perihal harga dari rumah Uya Kuya Villa itu, yakni ditaksir harganya mencapai 70 miliar rupiah. Mengetahui berlipat ganda keuntungannya.
Now, your co-headquarters is in Miami. So you spend a lot of time in Miami and Florida. People often think the hedge fund world is centered in New York or London. Do you have enough access to talent and information in Miami, or does it make a difference anymore?
Information is, everywhere at this point. So information's not the challenge. I think young talent tends to want to be in New York. I'd say 75-25, just because the ecosystem of young people and social reasons. We are having more big hedge funds, obviously Citadel being the most prominent, come down to Miami. And that causes management teams to increasingly come through Miami. So it is a perfectly good place to run a hedge fund. And there are many good hedge funds down there.
It's the most fascinating time for the global economy in years, and our conversations are front and center.
We're stress testing consequential ideas, and investors around the world are scoring them in real time,
helping to translate the policies from Washington into actionable ideas for Wall Street.
It's the morning call you actually want to be a part of.
Separating the signal from the noise,
with some fun along the way.
This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Up-to-the-minute geopolitical news wherever and whenever it happens. I'm Anne-Marie Hordern in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and this is Bloomberg.
Key investors, top executives, global innovators. Join me for in-depth conversations with the biggest newsmakers on the day's top stories. Insight with Haslinda Onen, only on Bloomberg.
Right, okay, ready?
David, what initially sparked your interest in this topic of longevity?
15 years ago, I turned 60, and I began to wonder how much longer I'm likely to live and what I could do to extend my life. On longevity, I talk with the leading experts in science and medicine to educate people about how they might be able to change their conduct so that they can live a happier and healthier life. I'm David Rubenstein. Join me on a 4-part journey as I explore the great quest for longevity. Only on Bloomberg.
Welcome back to Open Interest. Let's take a look at the sell-off right now. The S&P 500 down by 3 to 0.4%. Similar magnitude when you take a look at the NASDAQ 100. The small caps taking a beating, down about 0.5%. This would be the 5th straight day of losses for the S&P 500 should this hold. A lot of questions whether this is just August trading, whether there's something more fundamental going on. But at least for right now, the S&P 500 down another day. It's time now for our top calls. Some of the analyst action in focus this morning. And first up, Coty is getting cut over at Citi after the beauty maker forecasted a steep decline in sales because of falling demand. Citi says that these challenges will last for at least another 2 quarters. Coty shares down 21%, total wipeout there. Next up, we have Instacart getting cut to a sell over at Wedbush. The firm says that Amazon's expansion of its same-day grocery delivery service has intensified competition. You can certainly say that again. Instacart shares down more than 3%. And finally, we have Hewlett-Packard Enterprise getting raised to a buy over at Morgan Stanley. Bayless says that the recently closed Juniper deal will have a positive impact on earnings. Finally, some good news. Those shares up about 2.2%, Matt.
All right, interesting upgrades and downgrades there. I was just looking through Coty's perfume portfolio here.
Anything you like?
Well, apparently like 70 different brands: Hugo Boss, Gucci, Davidoff, Bottega Veneta, Calvin Klein, Marc Jacobs, but also Glow by J.Lo.
I just mix them all together, so.
Lady Gaga Fame, a unisex perfume. Released by House Laboratories in partnership with Coty. Let's turn back to the world's largest retailer, where you can no doubt buy all of these things. Walmart shares falling after profit missed expectations for the first time in 3 years, overshadowing higher sales and really the outlook. Joining us now to talk about this is Andrea Felstead, a Bloomberg opinion columnist who's been covering consumer goods and the retail industry for years for us here at Bloomberg. And Andrea, this has been a company that's, the stock has been successful, right? Until today, it was up 13, 14% year to date. Over the last 5 years, it was up 150% if you reinvested your dividends. Why such a sell-off today?
It's really because they raised their sales forecast, but they've left that profit forecast unchanged. And the profit miss was really about higher legal costs and some restructuring costs. But the outturn has worried investors that the great run that Walmart's had may be coming to the end, and maybe there are some cracks in what has been a really great story over the last few years.
But the thing is, who can take share from Walmart? And I especially go to the grocery business. They have a massive grocery business. Okay, maybe Amazon could chip away at that, but it seems like Walmart is just really dominant.
Well, there's a very interesting competitor coming from Europe for Walmart, which everyone really should keep an eye on, and that's Aldi. Aldi's really been expanding in the US. They have really low prices. They've been getting a lot of traffic, a lot of footfall. Now, about a decade ago in the UK, Tesco here was very dominant. And it really wasn't as aware of Aldi as it should have been. And Aldi really took a lot of sales. And that is a real worry for the US. So Walmart really, you know, it might be dominant. It's got Amazon, but it really has to stay on its toes with Aldi. It can't afford to let those low prices in its DNA slip.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you're seeing more Aldis pop up around the U.S., so it's a good point and something to keep an eye on. I do want to get your opinion on Target. Of course, we got the news yesterday that they're appointing long-serving executive Michael Fidelki to succeed as CEO here. He is a company insider. And Andrea, you wrote about how really he's taking over a company that's confronting an identity crisis right now.
Exactly. I think his turnaround that he's got to do is much harder than the one that Brian Cornell did. He had to fix the nuts and bolts, which Michael Fidelka has to do too. But he's really got to decide what Target stands for. You know, it's had some real, you know, flip-flopping in its identity with the Pride issue a couple of years ago, backtracking on DEI, and Target really put, you know, every kind of inclusivity at the heart of its strategy. So that's really stung a lot of customers. He's really got to, you know, fight back and reclaim Target's identity and win the trust of customers, at the same time fighting against Walmart, which is really going after, it was saying today it's growing with wealthy customers. It's really going after those more affluent consumers who typically shopped at Target.
Wait, do you think they need to kind of take a stand then? If Target is more the left-leaning soccer moms and Walmart is more of the Trumpier country shoppers, should they do?
I think they should. I think they should reassert their identity in the way they always had that. They were always known for being very inclusive with customers. And that slightly more affluent shopper base means their customers can afford to decide where they shop. Whereas I think Walmart's customers typically have been driven by low prices, that need for value. When you think about Costco, which has stuck to its principles, it's always put things like higher staff wages at the heart of its strategy. It's actually been gaining shoppers and gaining footfall. So I think there's a real lesson here for Target.
All right, Andrea, thanks so much for joining us. Andrea Felsted there, joining us from Bloomberg Opinion. You can check out her work by typing OPIN-GO on the Bloomberg terminal. You can find her on Bloomberg.com as well. We're going to have more on retail in the next hour. TD Cowen analyst Oliver Chen joins us. He has a buy rating on Walmart stock. We're going to talk Walmart with him, maybe dig in a little TGT as well. Coming up, OpenAI may soon make its extensive knowledge on AI infrastructure a service for other firms. They're going to spend trillions of dollars beefing up the AI infrastructure. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg. Bloomberg brings you breaking news 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 3,000 journalists and analysts in more than 100 bureaus across the globe. Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything.
From the beating heart of global finance, economics, and politics, and wherever newsmakers are moving markets, Bloomberg brings you conversations that allow for deep discussions and important insights. What do you think the future is for inflation? Is this a new normal? Are markets too optimistic? How do you worry about the things that are outside your control? How does the current fighting completely stop? I'm Francine Lacqua, and this is The Pulse, every weekday only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee in Victor, Idaho, and this is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Open Interest. I'm Matt Miller. Let's take a look at what stocks are doing. Continued losses on the equity indexes. S&P 500 down another third of 1%, 63.72. It's still not terribly low, but we're coming off of almost 6,500. Nasdaq 100 down a third of a percent at 23,172. We do have the dollar rising here. The Bloomberg U.S. Dollar Index is up, and Nvidia also putting up some gains, maybe a little bit of a bounce after some drops there. Meta, Facebook is down as they kind of freeze hiring. They've reorganized their superintelligence unit like 4 times in the last 6 months, according to reports. Walmart is off a whopping 5%. We just talked about that. Boeing getting a boost after it sells 500 planes, or agrees to sell 500 planes in China. Intel down a little bit. This one is interesting. It has continued to fall, and along with the rest of the tech sector, really reducing its valuation to only 199 times future earnings. So, Katie, I guess investors not buying the dip today.
Yeah, it's a real bargain there. Let's talk about OpenAI, though, because OpenAI's CFO is outlining a new strategy for the firm. Sarah Friar says that OpenAI is considering helping other businesses tap into the data centers and physical infrastructure needed for artificial intelligence. Bloomberg Intelligence head of global tech research, Mandeep Singh, is back in studio. He joins us now. Mandeep, tell us what's in it for OpenAI. Why do they want to do this?
Well, right now, what we are seeing is OpenAI has the best models when it comes to deploying generative AI. And with reasoning, that's the big shift this year. What you're seeing is the compute demand has been off the charts. In fact, OpenAI has signed deals with Google and CoreWeave. So remember, OpenAI had an exclusive partnership with Microsoft. Everything was deployed on Microsoft, but now they are leasing infrastructure from the likes of CoreWeave and Google. And that just goes to show they just can't meet the demand. It's like NVIDIA's chips. You know, it's similar.
Banyak, Mas Panji. Karena
saya berpikir this is stupid.
Nonsense.
Iya. Ada layanan juru kondisi Selamat datang kembali di Skakmat, sebuah program di mana gua main catur dengan bintang tamu, utamanya politisi, biasanya ngomongin soal kondisi bangsa, kondisi politik Indonesia, dalam rangka promosinya Mens Rea, stand up comedy special, sebuah pertunjukan tunggal komedi ke-10 gua, yang per episode ini tayang, kita 10 hari lagi. Jadi 10 hari lagi menuju spesial ke-10 gua di Indonesia Arena di depan 10.000 penonton. Dan kelihatannya ini bakal habis, dan sekarang aja dengan status penjualan tiket sekarang sudah menjadi pertunjukan komedi terbesar dalam sejarah Asia Tenggara. Sekedar mengingatkan untuk yang memastikan akan nonton, mari kita hitamkan Indonesia Arena. Kalau punya kaos atasan Presiden Republik Indonesia, itu yang kita pakai. Untuk yang belum punya, asal pakai kaos hitam atau atasan hitam, kita akan coba untuk ngasih pesan kepada Indonesia. Nah, tiket masih bisa dibeli per video ini diproduksi di mensrea.id, ada tiket live streaming juga dengan harga Rp300.000, tapi kalau misalnya lu buka rekening Bank Saku akan dapat potongan Rp100.000. Pertunjukan ini juga didesain inklusif, ada layanan juru bahasa isyarat untuk teman tuli, ada ramp, ada quiet room untuk teman disabilitas mental, karena gue pengen mengakses seluas-luasnya masyarakat. Nah, di hari ini, di episode ini episode yang sangat spesial karena orang pada bilang beliau ini ikut mempopulerkan pertunjukan gua. Karena Mens Rea disebut mulu, bukan hanya di persidangan beliau, tapi juga di diskusi-diskusi atas persidangan beliau. Sangat happy, sangat bangga, sangat bahagia akhirnya bisa bertemu dengan beliau secara langsung. Bapak Tom Lembong, welcome to the show.
Mas Panji, thank you so much. Makasih kesempatan yang diberikan.
Iya, sama-sama. Perlu kita buka di awal. Chess set kita nih milik pribadinya Pak Tom. Betul ya?
Betul, terima kasih.
Pak Tom, huge fan of Star Wars.
Huge, dari remaja. Dan ini dibeliin sama istri saya. Dan belum pernah kita pakai.
Belum pernah dipakai.
Jadi first time. Jadi saya pikir wah ini kesempatan betul.
Betul.
Untuk kita gunakan.
Iya, iya. Very interesting.
Star Wars chess set.
Star Wars chess set. Karena saya juga nonton I think kalau dibandingin Star Trek sama Star Wars, saya lebih ke Star Wars sih.
Siap, sama.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite character?
Who doesn't like Darth Vader? ya kan?
Oh my goodness, Pak, we have the same favorite character. I
think
love Darth Vader.
Kayaknya kita dan banyak orang juga ya.
Iya.
Icon betul kan.
Iya. Terus very interesting karena you seem like a very serious person. Sorry, but you do. You sound like a very serious. Bapak kalau misalnya, Bapak tahu nggak ada radio namanya KLCBS? Tahu nggak di Bandung itu radio jazz, Pak?
Siap.
Bapak kalau jadi penyiar atau Brava kalau di Jakarta, kayak cocok nih. Bapak pernah siaran nggak?
Enggak pernah, tapi apa ya Mas Panji bisa bayangin sih, ya kan banyak orang yang mengusulkan itu dengan suara yang saya punya. Bisa jadi penyiar radio ya.
Iya. Atau bisa jadi orang yang tahu nggak kalau zaman sekarang ASMR, Pak. Jadi Bapak sudah malam, saatnya tidur. Mungkin akan tidur juga. Anyway, so kita akan bermain catur, Pak.
Siap.
Di talk show ini pertanyaan pertama saya lempar di langkah catur pertama.
Siap.
Nanti ketika permainannya selesai, entah karena ada yang menang skakmat atau kepanjangan jadi saya resign atau apapun, saya punya kesempatan untuk bertanya pertanyaan terakhir.
Siap.
Ini hanya untuk mengingatkan saja. Sekarang konsentrasi kita adalah untuk mengingat mana yang mana gitu ya.
Iya nih, apa?
Pokoknya ini bishop saya, ini knight saya, ini rook saya.
Dan sebaliknya.
Iya, oke.
Pasukan di depan. Stormtroopers sama rebels.
Betul sekali. So are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Oke, langkah catur pertama saya ya. Pertanyaan pertama.
Siap.
Kita akan coba ngobrolin ulang kronologis tapi dari sudut pandang Bapak.
Siap.
Pak Tom.
They're coming straight in. Trust me, I've got nothing.
Waktu pertama kali mendengar kabar bahwa mungkin Bapak akan kena kasus ini, apakah Bapak langsung menganggap serius atau Bapak merasa ini nggak punya legal standing sih, I'm okay. Karena saya sejujurnya, waktu pertama kali ini muncul, saya berpikir, this is stupid.
Nonsense.
Iya, nggak usah, I didn't pay attention, Pak. Saya nggak merhatiin kasus Bapak, karena saya pikir, you'll be okay. Waktu Bapak dengar itu pertama kali, apakah Bapak merasa, they don't have legal standing, it'll be okay? Atau Bapak anggap serius?
Dua-duanya, Mas Panji. Karena saya pertama kali dengar mengenai risiko saya dikasuskan, ya itu kan sudah di pertengahan 2023. Begitu wacana Pak Anies nyapres memanas, dan bahkan sudah ada percakapan antara partai politik, dan tentunya saya salah satu kerabat terdekatnya Pak Anies. Ya. Sudah ada yang wanti-wanti bahwa ini kalau Tom lanjut bisa kena kasus, ya kan? Saya tahu bahwa saya sangat teliti, ya sangat rapih, dan dari dulu tahu banget bahwa saya nggak punya ruang sama sekali untuk main-main, ya kan? Jadi benar ya Mas Panji bilang, pasti nggak akan ada apa-apa dari segi mensrea, dari segi actus reus, ya kan? Pasti nggak akan ada apa-apa. Tapi saya tahu bahwa aparat bisa dipersenjata, ya, dan ancaman itu serius, ya. Dan itu pertengahan 2023. Tim kampanye Anies Mohaimin resmi diluncurkan pertengahan atau ya akhir Oktober ya 2023. Sprindik, surat perintah penyidikan dari Kejagung itu Kejaksaan Agung terbit 3 Oktober 2023. Dan sepanjang kampanye ya setiap 2 bulan, ya kan, setiap 6 minggu, setiap 8 minggu, ya ada aja yang ngingetin saya bahwa Kejaksaan Agung lagi membidik kasus terhadap saya terkait importasi gula. Ya. Nah, kemudian ada peristiwa-peristiwa sepanjang 2000.
Guys, nggak ada pergerakan yang kayak satu hari tuh satu arah beret gitu.
Ya kan, bahkan setelah Pilpres dan sengketa MK sudah selesai, dan kan sempat ada darurat konstitusi, ya kan, di mana saya juga di luar ekspektasi diminta naik ke atas mobil komando, ya kan, depan gerbang DPR, memberikan orasi kepada ribuan demonstran. Jadi semakin kenceng tuh orang mewanti-wanti bahwa ini bisa-bisa bakal dijeblosin ke penjara.
Oke. Pada titik apa, Bapak silakan maju juga. Ya.
Oke.
Pertanyaan selanjutnya adalah pada titik apa Bapak memutuskan untuk kayaknya kita mesti punya pengacara. At one point do you lawyer up?
Right.
Sorry, ini di penjara.
Oh ya, sorry. Setelah saya ditangkap.
Oh gitu. Setelah ditangkap. Oke.
Jadi, wah, banyak sekali perbincangan terus terang. Bahkan kalau nggak salah ingat, darurat konstitusi itu juga bulan-bulan kemerdekaan, Agustus, September gitu kan. Dan ini kayak eskalasi kan, eskalasi situasi politik, suhu politik. Dan semakin serius perbincangan saya dengan keluarga, ya, dengan kerabat, termasuk apakah saya kabur aja dulu.
Ya, ada opsi itu sebenarnya?
Dalam posisi saya, posisi kami, semua opsi harus dipertimbangkan, ya kan? Meskipun kita mungkin tidak mau, ya, tapi wajib sekurang-kurangnya dipertimbangkan kan. Tapi saya sangat cepat menyimpulkan saya justru mau menghadapinya langsung. Ya kan? Saya nggak mau jadi buronan di luar negeri, ya kan. itu nggak serik banget. Ya. Kalaupun misalnya mau dikasuskan, ayo, ya kan. Bahkan saya mau dibui, ayo, mendingan saya dibui daripada pelarian gitu ya, lari kabur ke luar negeri. Saya waktu itu masih berharap bahwa waktu saya mulai dipanggil-panggil untuk diperiksa oleh Kejaksaan Agung, saya masih berharap itu cuma nakut-nakutin doang, ya, nggak akan sampai dijeblosin ke penjara, ya kan. Dan saya kan ditahan setelah pemeriksaan keempat, ya. Jadi setelah pemeriksaan pertama, kedua, ketiga, saya sebenarnya makin yakin, makin pede bahwa tidak ada pelanggaran prosedur, tidak ada apalagi melanggar hukum ya. Jadi justru saya makin pede atau makin enteng sampai tiba-tiba di hari itu pemeriksaan keempat dikasih tahu pimpinan memutuskan untuk menyatakan Bapak tersangka dan akan segera ditahan, langsung ditahan hari itu juga, ya kan. Jadi selama 4 kali pemeriksaan saya nggak bawa pengacara, ya kan, dan juga tidak berkonsultasi dengan pengacara karena saya masih berharap ya ini nggak akan sampai se-ekstrim itu ya. Dan ya syukur our team knows what to do ya. Jadi tim kita tahu wah ini sangat politis sehingga penasihat hukum yang tepat itu ya yang juga harus sangat mengerti perpolitikan, yaitu ketua tim hukum, tim kampanye kita ya Pak Arius Amir dan timnya. Jadi baru setelah saya sudah ditahan baru saya tanda tangan surat kuasa ya untuk pengacara saya.
Kan
saya
tiga,
harus
ya silakan.
move dulu ya.
Iya. 3 pemeriksaan pertama Bapak pede.
Siap.
Ya kan, 3 pemeriksaan pertama membuat Bapak bilang nggak sini, nggak akan ada masalah.
Betul.
Tapi di yang keempat malah diputuskan jadi tersangka. Kan ada yang publik tahu dari berita, sama ada yang Bapak dengar sendiri berada di ruangan. Waktu Bapak bilang sorry nih Pak diputuskan sama atasan Bapak jadi tersangka, pasti kan pertanyaan Bapak kenapa?
Right. Right.
Lalu jawabannya?
Betul.
Kalau memang nggak ada gitu ya standingnya dari 3 pemeriksaan.
Jadi kondisi dalam saat seperti itu ya Mas Panji, kita lumayan shock ya. Sesiap apapun ya, persiapan mental apapun yang sudah kita jalankan, sebagai manusia itu tetap aja shock. Jadi saya speechless, nggak berkata-kata. Ya kan? Waktu dikasih tahu dan langsung disuruh dibacakan beberapa dokumen standar ya, disuruh langsung tanda tangan berita acara penahanan dan sebagainya, saya tidak berkata-kata ya. Dan kemudian didatangkan dokter, tes kesehatan segala macam kan, ada videonya itu, saya tidak berkata-kata ya. Dan tentunya saya juga terisolasi karena dalam ruang pemeriksaan tidak diperbolehkan membawa HP, alat komunikasi. Jadi saya tidak tahu apa isi konferensi pers yang digelar pada saat yang sama ya di bawah. Yang kemudian menguraikan apa tuduhan-tuduhan kepada saya. Ya. Jadi saya sama sekali tidak tahu apa yang menjadi dasar tuduhan ya, yang kemudian mereka pakai untuk menahan saya. Ya, tapi ya mental saya waktu itu cuman ya udah ngikut aja, ya kan, kita jalankan. Tentunya dipakaikan rompi pink, diborgol, ya kan, kemudian dibawa ke bawah untuk dibawa ke rumah tahanan, ya, dipamer ke depan media, ya kan, yang ramai banget waktu itu. Ya, pikiran saya jalankan saja. Ya udah nasib, ya kan, sudah pilihan juga, ya kan, karena saya tahu sepanjang setahun lebih bahwa ini risiko yang bisa terjadi dan saya secara penuh kesadaran tetap memilih untuk lanjut, ya, untuk terus maju dalam perjuangan kita.
Saya mau stop dikit dari prosesnya, mau bertanya lebih ke personal Pak Tomnya. Kan tidak pernah dong ada dalam bayangan Bapak bahwa akan diborgol dan dirompi. Dan pasti kan pertanyaan, kenapa saya kan pasti santer sekali. Kalau misalnya afiliasi ke Mas Anies gitu kan banyak yang punya afiliasi itu. Tapi tanpa harus kita mempertanyakan itu, saya lebih pengen tahu, terus gimana caranya Pak Tom memproses semua itu? Karena sejujurnya Pak, publik tuh seneng banget membandingkan dua jenis foto. Yang Bapak, yang siapa namanya?
Syahril Yassin Limpo.
Iya, Limpo yang dari atas sama Bapak yang dari atas. Yang satu kelihatan banget, kata publik nih ya, maaf nih, kelihatan banget stresnya. Yang satu senyum. Jadi kan secara mental, pasti ada sesuatu yang Bapak katakan kepada diri Bapak sendiri gitu. Do you draw inspiration from Star Wars? Oh ini kayak waktu itu nih, si Han Solo pernah ditangkap, mungkin gua akan bebas juga. Gimana Bapak memproses itu? Karena semua orang pengen punya mental resiliency kayak gitu.
Siap. Mumpung Mas Panji sebut inspirasi dari Star Wars ya, memang yang membuat produk entertainment tertentu itu istimewa ya. Itu menurut saya pesan moralnya. Ya banyak sekali pesan moral. Ya, kalau kita pikir-pikir, apakah itu film animasi, ya kan? Apakah itu film science fiction, apakah itu film atau serial yang romantis atau yang action, ya, yang klasik pasti ada pesan moral yang kuat atau menginspirasi ya. Jadi ya dari storytelling ya, kita tahu bahwa memang hidup itu naik turun dan ya itu yang membuat drama dalam film atau serial kan, bahwa wah akhirnya menemukan saat-saat yang tergelap, ya kan. Tapi kan selalu ada resolusi, selalu ada redemption ya, apapun itu ya, bisa happy ending, bisa tragedi sebagai ending ya, berujung pada tragedi, tapi yang penting itu kan mengandung makna, ya. Kita sebaiknya kan mengejar makna dalam hidup ya. Jadi belum tentu mengejar sukses atau bahagia, ya bisa saja nasib kita adalah tidak bahagia atau tidak sukses, tapi itu pun oke selama kegagalan atau kesedihan itu mengandung makna, ya, meaning. Nah, saya beruntung sekali karena yang banyak ngajarin saya beberapa tahun terakhir itu istri saya, ya, termasuk jadi sangat religius, ya, sangat Katolik, dan dia mengajarkan saya bahwa semua adalah rencana Tuhan, ya, dan rencana Tuhan itu selalu sempurna, ya kan. Jadi ya akhirnya ke ajaran itu, ya kan. Ya ini semuanya pasti ada tujuannya, tidak ada yang kebetulan, ya kan. Ikut aja. Dan mungkin ketiga ya latar belakang manajerial ya. Jadi sebagai manajer kan kita sangat praktis, ya kan. Memang manusia punya emosi, tapi sebagai manajer kita selalu bilang, ya kan, ngapain nge-stress mengenai hal yang nggak bisa kita kendali, ya kan, itu kan tidak produktif ya. Jadi mungkin sedikit bayangan ya saya mendapat rasa tenang dari hal-hal seperti itu.
Saya ya Pak, giliran saya tapi saya belum giliran. Saya ada orang yang nonton episode ini pasti merasa sering sekali mendengar ucapan seperti Bapak, tapi saya ada di posisi di mana buat saya sih, saya diingatkan juga bahwa dalam apapun yang kita lakukan, karena saya mau melakukan 10.000 penonton, it's the biggest in the history of Southeast Asia. Jadi pertanyaan besarnya kan akan berhasil atau tidak berhasil, tapi
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter now.
It doesn't matter.
What matters is apakah kita bisa, apakah itu punya makna.
Exactly. Dan balik ke rencana Tuhan ya, seringkali kita dikecewakan ya, karena saat itu sebuah kegagalan. Kemudian 4 tahun kemudian, 7 tahun kemudian kita baru lihat, oh alasannya ini, ya kan? Itu terjadi supaya A, B, dan C bisa terjadi di tahun-tahun kemudian, ya kan? Jadi kegagalan pun bisa menanam bibit yang akan berbunga atau berbuah yang baik, ya kan? Berapa bulan, berapa tahun kemudian, ya. Dan justru biasanya seperti itu, Mas Panji. Kegagalan itu yang justru menjadi akar dari makna dan apa ya, bijaksana. Ya. Sementara sukses itu menggoda kita ke arah ego, ya kan, ke arah materialis, gengsi dan sebagainya ya. Jadi kita kurang menghargai betapa pentingnya kegagalan atau saat-saat tergelap. Ya, karena itu yang justru bikin kita punya karakter yang dalam, ya, dan itu justru memberikan kita peluang ya untuk bisa menjadi bijaksana. Sementara hati-hati dengan sukses, hati-hati dengan sukses itu paling bahaya karena langsung besar kepala, ya kan, langsung apa ya, tergoda dengan banyak hal. Lalai, lengah gitu ya, lengah. Dan akhirnya lalai karena
complacent gitu ya.
Ada complacent betul. Jadi dalam bahasa Indonesia ada istilah keren sekali, lupa daratan, ya kan. Jadi ya.
Agree. Kalau di Star Wars guys, ini lagi Empire Strikes Back. Habis ini Return of the Jedi.
Nah, itu dia.
Oke, kita balik lagi ke kasusnya. Di dalam persidangan, Bapak total berapa kali sidang sih sebenarnya? Saya lupa ingat.
23 kali. Iya. Bahkan kemarin waktu kami audiensi dengan Komisi Yudisial, mereka juga kaget. Oh my God, banyak banget sidangnya, ya kan?
Mereka aja kaget.
Itu terhitung cukup.
Maaf, dalam course berapa lama Pak? Saya lupa.
4 bulan.
4 bulan 23. Oh, betul. Must be heavy on you.
It's okay. Saya sempat bilang, saya merasa seperti setiap tahapan hidup, tahapan karir saya, mempersiapkan saya untuk momen ini. Ya, jadi karena saya berkarya sebagai investment banker, ya, mengelola investasi, lembur sampai pagi, berhari-hari itu hal biasa, ya kan? Pressure yang luar biasa, ya kan, dengan harus memutuskan sesuatu terkait puluhan triliun rupiah, ya, pressure, kemudian semua investasi itu kan didokumentasi melalui kontrak dan hukum, ya. Jadi saya ngerti hukum, ya, jadi saya merasa sangat-sangat siap ya menghadapi perkara ini.
Oke. Nah, apa yang Bapak rasakan menjalani 23 kali sidang tersebut? Karena di mata publik kayak pertunjukan, Pak. Kayak sitkom. Pada maju, mana ini apa segala macam gitu. Semakin panjang, dan saya juga mungkin nggak terlalu ngerti hukum, tapi semakin panjang kami mengamati dari luar, semakin nggak bener ini. Dan Bapak harus melewati itu 23 kali gitu. Perspektif Bapak terhadap persidangan dan sistem hukum di Indonesia, apakah ada yang berubah kah? Ataukah tadinya nol malah jadi baru wawasan terhadap persidangan dan sistem hukum di Indonesia?
Saya gerak dulu ya. Bentar, ini yang Bishop ya, diagonal. Oke.
Ya, maaf.
Oh ya, makasih. Sama halnya seperti semua pengalaman dalam hidup ya, persidangan itu banyak up and down, ya, banyak pasang surut. Kadang-kadang kita lagi ngetop, ya, di lain saat kita surut, ya, benar-benar down. Tapi itu juga pelajarannya. Naik turun itu biasa. Yang penting secara fundamental kita maju terus, ya kan, nggak mundur. Pokoknya selalu ada kemajuan, ya kan? Dan seringkali bukan yang diperlukan bukan kita cemerlang ya atau terobosan ya. Yang perlu itu ya konsisten aja ya. Jadi ada senator di Amerika ya, kalau nggak salah Ted Kennedy atau kalau nggak salah ya, pernah bilang 60% of success in life is just showing up.
60%
of success in life is just showing up. Jadi 60% dari kesuksesan kita dalam hidup itu hanya hadir.
Yeah. Because sometimes people don't show up.
Absolutely. Itu menggoda banget untuk tidak hadir, ya kan, untuk apa? Stay home, ya kan, atau memilih untuk tidak berjuang. Jadi sekali kita memilih untuk berjuang atau kita pilih untuk hadir, itu udah 60% dari kesuksesan, ya kan. Dan lucunya ya, ini mungkin buat generasi muda, semua akan ada solusinya. Ya, semua pasti ada solusinya. Dan seringkali solusinya hadir dengan sendirinya. Ya, asal kita sendiri hadir. Ya, jadi solusi nggak akan bisa hadir kalau kita sendiri nggak hadir. Tapi kita seringkali nggak usah ngapa-ngapain. Just be yourself. Asal kita hadir, tiba-tiba ada aja solusi itu juga hadir. Ya kan? Terakhir mungkin soal itu, tugas kita adalah bersabar dan beriman. Have faith. Percayalah bahwa solusi itu akan hadir. Ya, cepat atau lambat. Pada momen, pada timing yang ditetapkan oleh Yang Maha Kuasa.
Kalau
ini Dion, orang Jogja yang ingin mulai jualan online. Dion butuh nama domain. Tokobukudion.com. Sempurna. Tapi tunggu, Dion dari Bali juga lagi cari domain. Dion dari Jakarta juga. Siapa cepat dia dapat. Segera daftarkan nama domain impian sebelum diambil orang. Cari domain di hostinger.com/id sekarang.
Kalau Bapak ingat, ada satu momen di mana kalau nggak salah, tapi saya juga lupa ingat. Tapi ada momen di mana pengacara Bapak maju dan mempertanyakan kepada jaksa bukti-bukti yang ditagih juga sama hakimnya dan dianya juga nggak bisa menemukan.
Betul.
Harusnya itu kan turning point, Pak ya. Mungkin benar Bapak, I got this.
Right.
I got this. I got you cornered gitu.
Right.
Tapi kita tahu akhirnya nggak seperti itu. Nah, pada momen itu spesifik, kalau Bapak ingat momen yang saya maksud, apa yang ada di benak Bapak dan tim Bapak?
Nah, ini menarik, Mas Panji, karena kita lagi main catur ya. Jadi ada pepatah dalam ilmu geopolitik, ya. Americans play checkers, Russians play chess, Chinese play Go. Ya, jadi kalau kita tahu permainan checkers itu kan cuma hitam dan putih, ya kan, sangat simple, maju mundur, ya kan. Chess, catur jauh lebih kompleks, ya kan. Tapi yang namanya Go, ya, yang juga batu-batu kecil,
hitam dan putih
juga, tapi tujuannya untuk mengepung, ya kan, itu lebih kompleks lagi. Ya, jadi ini lagi eranya AI, artificial intelligence, ya, dan komputer yang bisa menang catur tuh udah lama, ya, 20 tahun lalu juga udah ada, ya. Tapi komputer yang bisa mengalahkan manusia di dalam permainan Go. Nah, itu baru terobosan AI yang luar biasa. Ya, jadi bagaimana ngepung, ya kan, lawan, gitu. Nah, dalam persidangan memang belum tentu akan ada satu momen kunci, ya, belum tentu akan ini dia, ya, turning point atau kondisi berbalik gitu ya. Tapi mungkin mesti kiri dulu, kanan dulu, ya kan, mundur dulu, ya kan, maju mundur kiri kanan, dan memang balik ke analogi tanam bibit ya, seringkali kita tanam bibit untuk nanti kita baru panen sebulan kemudian atau 2 bulan kemudian. Ya, kita tahu bahwa ini tidak akan meledak saat itu juga, ya, tapi akan sangat bermanfaat 2 bulan 3 bulan kemudian. Ya, jadi secara manajerial saya selalu mengingatkan tim ya, selalu pakai paradigma jangka pendek, jangka menengah, jangka panjang. Ya, jadi ya memang penting banget dalam momen-momen seperti itu ya untuk mengendalikan emosi. Ya, jadi saat kita kayak menang gitu ya, jangan euforia, atau saat kita blunder ya pun jangan terlalu down ya. Dan saya sudah lama ya mencoba bangun kultur dalam organisasi ya. Kita sebagai atasan jangan menghukum kegagalan ya atau kesalahan ya, karena kalau orang kita, tim kita nggak pernah membuat kesalahan ya, berarti dia nggak pernah ambil keputusan atau tidak, apalagi tidak pernah mengambil risiko ya. Sementara kita harus ambil risiko ya. Kalau nggak pernah mempertaruhkan ya sesuatu, nggak pernah akan ada kemenangan ya kan. Tapi ya pertaruhan kita nggak mungkin selalu berhasil kan. Jadi yang penting balik lagi sejauh mungkin kendalikan emosi dan selalu jaga perspektif ya kan. Ini perjuangan masih panjang ya kan, ini masih ada banyak kesempatan lain untuk menang lagi atau kalah lagi ya kan. Jadi dan semuanya diletakkan secara proporsional ya.
Does it feel like, dengan analogi checkers, chess and go, does it feel like gue pikir gue lagi main chess, ternyata ini orang lagi main go ketika persidangan, karena Bapak pikir ini murni sidang, ternyata ini politis gitu. Kalau murni hukum mah gue kuat, tapi kalau lu mainnya politik ya gue mah bingung gitu. Ada rasa seperti itu sepanjang perjalanan itu?
Justru dengan tokoh-tokoh seperti Mas Panji, ya, komika, dan tokoh masyarakat lainnya bersuara, ya, itu menyadarkan saya ya, bahwa ini pertaruhan yang lebih besar, ya. Ini perjuangannya lebih luas daripada sekedar sebuah perkara hukum atau bahkan sebuah pertempuran politik. Ya, ini udah mulai ke prinsip-prinsip, ya, mulai ke norma dan nilai, ya, dan mulai ke peradaban kita, ya. Nah, ini kebetulan kita lagi diskusi di bulan kemerdekaan ya, dan saya merasa bahwa ini mungkin momentum yang tepat untuk kita merenung, kita mau menjadi bangsa seperti apa, ya. Apakah kita mau menjadi bangsa yang dendaman dan ganas, brutal, haus darah, ya kan? Atau kita mau menjadi bangsa yang bijaksana, ya kan? Yang kalem dan sistematis, ya, dan punya perspektif luas ya, tidak punya perspektif atau kepentingan sempit atau dangkal, tapi balik lagi. Ya, apakah kita mau membangun sebuah hidup sebagai bangsa ya yang penuh makna, atau kita ini hanya masalah menang-menangan, ya kan? Siapa yang lebih menang, siapa yang lebih kalah, ya. Seperti tadi kita sempat singgung, ujungnya nggak ada bedanya, apakah menang atau kalah, ya. Bukan di situ letak sukses tidak ya, tapi apakah kemenangan ataupun kekalahan mengandung makna dan sebesar apa makna itu, ya kan. Jadi justru suara-suara dari publik ya mengingatkan saya, wow, ini udah bukan lagi hal sempit, ya kan, ini udah sesuatu ujian bagi kita semua ya, yang kemudian kami juga harus menyesuaikan strategi dengan realita itu ya.
Menarik sekali tadi kita mengulang lagi soal makna Pak ya. Dan juga tadi Pak Tom sempat bilang bahwa everything happens for a reason basically.
Correct.
Di bawah Tuhan.
Nggak ada yang kebetulan.
Betul. Sebenarnya di episode-episode awalnya Skakmat, ini kan hampir 40-an episode Pak ya. Di episode awal tuh saya tuh punya keresahan soal publik yang tidak teredukasi dengan baik soal sistem hukum di Indonesia. Distant gitu, jauh sekali. Sehingga takut sama hukum karena nggak ngerti hukum. Diskusi soal hukum tidak pernah terjadi. Sehingga mereka tidak memperkaya diri, nggak tahu apa yang jadi hak mereka, apa yang nggak jadi hak mereka. Kalau ada satu hal yang sangat positif silver liningnya adalah sekarang kita semua ngomongin hukum.
Betul sekali.
Iya.
Betul sekali.
Dulu cuma saya ngomong mens rea Pak. Sekarang semua orang ngomongin mens rea dan Bapak ngelihatnya seperti apa? Buat saya kejutan loh Pak, bahwa publik mau mengamati persidangan seperti ini dan bisa nangkap a bigger context of it. Nggak cuman berhenti di persidangannya aja.
Betul.
Karena sentimen publik dalam kasus Bapak tuh positif sekali kepada Bapak gitu.
Siap.
Kan butuh pemahaman. Nah, from inside looking out, ngelihat terhadap masyarakat dan apa respon masyarakat terhadap Bapak, apa pendapat Bapak? Bapak mungkin boleh melangkah dulu.
Siap. Saya move dulu ya. Itu satu hal yang sangat saya syukuri ya Mas Panji. Pengalaman kita 9 bulan ini akhirnya menjadi sangat edukatif ya bagi banyak orang. Dan balik lagi, ini udah rencana Tuhan ya. Saya kayaknya udah dipersiapkan dari sejak lama ya. Kebetulan salah satu bakat saya mungkin ya, ini rezeki dari Allah ya. Saya punya bakat untuk menyederhanakan hal yang kompleks.
Bakat itu Pak, itu bakat.
Dan saya sangat mensyukurinya ya. Jadi untuk menguraikan sesuatu yang kompleks dengan cara yang kompleks itu sederhana. Ya itu gampang, bukan sederhana. Tapi untuk merumuskannya dengan cara yang simple, mudah dimengerti, ya kan, dengan kata-kata yang biasa, itu perlu upaya yang cukup luar biasa. Makanya kenapa saya cocok banget menjadi penulis pidato Presiden Jokowi, ya, kayaknya yang seringkali viral atau kena gitu ya, itu kita menerangkan sesuatu, ya, apakah perekonomian, geopolitik, ya, yang sangat kompleks, perang dagang, ya kan, dengan cara-cara yang sangat simple, ya, seperti saya pernah tulis pidato Pak Presiden yang mengenai Thanos, ya kan, untuk menerangkan perang dagang.
That was you. Oh my goodness.
Thanos.
Viral itu.
Lumayan.
People understand the context ya.
Exactly, karena perang dagang seperti itu, ya. Di Thanos itu kan di Marvel itu merasa bahwa sumber daya itu terbatas, ya kan. Jadi kita harus rebutan nih, ya kan. Paradigma itu win-lose, bukan win-win. Ya, karena sumber daya itu terbatas. Ya, nah saya pakai itu untuk menggambarkan dalam pidato Presiden mengenai perang dagang, ya kan, bahwa sebetulnya kondisi manusia tidak seperti itu. Ya, sebetulnya kekayaan kita tuh tanpa batas. Ya, kenapa? Karena imajinasi manusia tidak kenal batas. Ya, kita ada aja yang kita ciptakan, ya kan. Mana ada 30 tahun lalu internet, ya, mana ada 30 tahun lalu influencer, ya kan, media sosial. Dan sekarang banyak kekayaan kan dari teknologi atau imajinasi, ya, seperti Hollywood atau perfilman. Sekarang syukur sekali perfilman dan entertainment di Indonesia luar biasa ya. Jadi paradigma win-lose ya. Jadi untuk saya menang, Anda harus kalah ya. Dalam konteks kehidupan dan perdagangan, apalagi hidup berbangsa itu salah sekali ya. Kita bisa menang bersama, kita bisa kalah bersama. Bahkan biasanya seperti itu ya. Kalau kita kolaboratif, kita selalu menang bersama. Kalau kita konfrontatif, kita pasti dua-duanya kalah, nggak ada yang menang dalam sebuah perang, termasuk perang dagang ya. Jadi ini semua ya, melihat diskusi publik ya, sampai akhirnya mungkin setiap ibu rumah tangga se-Indonesia sekarang tahu istilah mensrea ya kan? Karena kita bekerja keras untuk menyederhanakan argumentasi, debat ya kan, dan kebetulan juga perkara ini memang istimewa ya, karena begitu hitam putih, nggak ada abu-abunya kan. Jadi ini menjadi momentum yang bagus banget, ya kan, tepat banget untuk edukasi bersama, ya karena ini jelas banget, ya kan, sangat-sangat jelas, hitam putih udah, ya kan, seperti catur, ya kan, hitam dan putih, tidak ada abu-abunya, ya kan, dan itu mungkin membuat banyak orang kembali ke prinsip-prinsip dasar. Ya, kita kan suka terpancing ya dengan hal-hal yang sebenarnya nggak relevan. Ya, bahwa seseorang katakan itu flexing, ya kan, dia punya gaya hidup mewah. Emang nyebelin. Tapi secara hukum kan itu tidak relevan. Betul. Ya kan, tapi ya di era viralitas ya itu udah keburu viral, akhirnya seseorang mungkin sudah dihakimi oleh opini publik sebelum dia punya peluang untuk dihakimi secara adil dalam persidangan yang netral kan. Nah dalam hal ini dan itu karena kondisinya sangat abu-abu ya kan, wah ini orang banyak uang ya kan, hidup mewah, pasti ada sesuatu ya kan. Nah dalam hal ini somehow ya, semua serba hitam putih, kan? Jadi sangat lebih mudah lah untuk publik mencerna dan berdiskusi mengenai perkara ini.
Menarik. Jadi sebenarnya Bapak merasa ada Bapak dan tim melakukan sesuatu untuk menyederhanakan kebenarannya agar mudah dipersepsikan atau dimengerti oleh publik, termasuk oleh ibu-ibu rumah tangga. Karena Bapak takutnya orang berpikir hitam putih, ini orang kaya pasti salah, ya kan? Terus udah gitu sidang juga not in your favor. Tapi Bapak memutuskan harus ada semacam komunikasi publik untuk membuat orang mengerti konteksnya lebih umum. Itu dilakukan strategically.
Sebenarnya sih iya dan tidak. Ya. Satu pepatah favorit kami ya, Mas Panji, dalam organisasi yang saya pimpin, ya, berbagai organisasi yang saya pimpin, saya selalu katakan, character is destiny. Ya, karakter itu nasib. Ya. Nah, kalau diterjemahkan ke nasib bangsa, ya, budaya adalah nasib, ya, kultur adalah nasib. Ya. Jadi kebetulan karakter saya yang terbentuk selama bertahun-tahun dan puluhan tahun itu memang menuju ke penyederhanaan. Ya, jadi kenapa saya mungkin ditunjuk atau diminta ke posisi yang leadership ya? Karena saya bisa back to basics. Ya, hal yang rumit, apakah itu investasi, ya, apakah itu kebijakan, saya bisa mendistilasi. Ya, saya bisa merangkum sebetulnya yang penting-penting itu apa sih? Ya kan, back to basics ya, yang fundamentalnya apa sih, ya kan? Jadi balik lagi, yang tadi saya singgung, perasaan seperti seolah-olah semua karir dan hidup saya tuh mempersiapkan saya untuk momen ini, ya. Jadi I'm just being myself, to be honest, ya. Saya menjalankan sidang sama seperti saya menjalankan proses investasi, ya kan? Atau saya menjalankan proses perumusan dan pelaksanaan kebijakan, ya. Kita jangan